Hello, live streamers. We're going to get started pretty soon. I see, hopefully, I don't know who this is watching, but you're not on there. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started real soon. We're running a little bit late, but I'm going to make an announcement to the crowd here, and then we're going to get going. So thank you for coming out. Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. I wanted to first thank you all for coming to our Kill the Cuts rally here in Atlanta. Welcome to all of you here at Liberty Plaza, and welcome to all of you who are joining us via live stream on YouTube. So thank you for coming out today. Today we're having a National Day of Action, and there's over 30 actions throughout the country today for Kill the Cuts, and we have thousands of people participating throughout the country. Just to kind of give you a little bit of orientation about our event, we have some tables over here to my right, to your left. We have some QR codes over there, so the national team is asking us to have people check in so we can get an accurate count of how many people participated nationwide today. So if you get a chance to check in with the QR code over there, we'd appreciate that. We're also asking everybody who attends today to participate in an email zap. So what we're doing is everybody is going to email their senators and possibly their representatives as well. We have a QR code for that is on the table over there. There's a bit.ly / April 8 letter. So I have that over there if you want to zap. I think for us it's going to be our Senators Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff to let them know that they need to kill the cuts. So if you can participate in that email zap, we would really appreciate that. Today you're going to hear from some really amazing speakers. And after that, we're going to rally on the sidewalk right out here. If you brought a sign, that's wonderful. We have a few signs that are pre-made, and we also have lots of poster board and markers for you to make your own sign. So go ahead, that's also over at these tables. So feel free to make your own sign for when we go out to the sidewalk and have our rally. So again, thank you all for coming today. And to think about why are we here? Why did we all come out today? By cutting funds to life-saving research and medical care, the Trump administration is abandoning families who are suffering and costing taxpayers billions of dollars. These cuts are dangerous to our health, dangerous to our economy. Cutting NIH funding means more people will die of preventable deaths. Over the years, NIH research has led and caused the United States to be a global leader in life-saving medical breakthroughs that have benefited millions. For example, deaths from childhood cancer have gone down by 70% over the last 5 decades due to improvements in treatment. 3.8 million lives in the United States have been saved since 1991 due to advances in early detection and treatment of cancer. But the NIH is under attack. CDC is under attack. We need to kill the cuts to life-saving research, and that's why we're all here today. So I'm pleased to introduce our first speaker. This is the wonderful Jennifer Leavey. Jennifer Leavey has degrees in chemistry, immunology, molecular pathogenesis. She's a member of Georgia's Stand Up for Science leadership team, and she's the lead singer for a science punk rock band that you all need to check out, Leucine Zipper and the Zinc Fingers.
Are they going to play again?
I hope we can get them to play sometime soon. Yes. So welcome, Jennifer Leavey.
Thank you, Jill, and thanks everyone for coming out today. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so go easy on me.
You got this.
All right. My name is Jennifer Leavey, and I'm a scientist, a mother, an educator, and one of the local organizers of Stand Up for Science. I came here today to talk about how cuts made to federal agencies are rolling back years of progress advancing medical research and improving public health, and how we can come together in community to resist regressionary policies, advance our priorities, and create a healthy future for all. As a disclaimer, I am speaking to you today as an individual and sharing my personal opinions. I am not speaking on behalf of Georgia Tech, where I have worked for over 20 years. As I mentioned earlier, I am a scientist, and virtually all of my training to be a scientist was funded by the federal government. In graduate school, my living expenses were covered by a research stipend that was paid from my advisor's research grants, and through loans subsidized by the federal government that I paid back over years. As a postdoctoral researcher, I was paid directly from NIH training grants that support early career scientists. Without these grants and loans, I would have never been able to help advance what we know about the immune system's role in autoimmunity, chronic infectious disease, or women's health. And I would have never gotten my PhD or gone into a career in higher education. NIH funding made me who I am today. But right now, vast swaths of the Department of Health and Human Services are being dismantled. NIH employees with decades of experience administering and evaluating programs designed to ensure America has a well-qualified STEM workforce are losing their jobs. So I ask you, do you think firing staffers at the NIH is going to improve American medical research?
No!
Do you think firing staffers is going to improve public health?
No!
Is firing people going to cure cancer?
No!
Absolutely not. We need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to invest in what we care about. How can we improve American research? Kill the cuts.
Woo!
How can we improve American manufacturing? Kill the cuts. How can we improve the health of Americans? Kill the cuts. I relied on the federal government to train as a scientist, and I've also relied on the federal government to keep me alive. I was a young woman in college from 1991 to 1995. Those years were also the peak of the AIDS epidemic in the United States. I was reliant on low-cost birth control from Planned Parenthood to keep me free from pregnancy and free from disease. In those days, there was no PrEP or even effective retroviral therapy. People were dying every day from AIDS. In fact, in 1994, AIDS was the leading cause of death for all Americans 25 to 44 years old. It was terrifying. Anonymous HIV testing rolled out on college campuses nationwide. I got tested every few months for many years. It was scientists at the CDC and elsewhere who developed those tests and public health campaigns that kept me safe. It was federal funding that went into research to develop antiretroviral therapy that now keeps people from dying of AIDS. But we still don't have a vaccine, and HIV infection rates are continuing to increase in the US and around the world. So, I ask you, do you think firing staffers at the CDC is going to keep Americans safe from AIDS?
No!
Do you think firing staffers at USAID is going to keep Americans safe from HIV?
No!
We don't have a completely effective vaccine for HIV, and perhaps we never will. But there are plenty of diseases that we do have vaccines for. 5 years ago, we watched the development of an assortment of anti-SARS-CoV-2 vaccines developed before our very eyes. It was an amazing thing to watch and teach my students about. While some people were huffing bleach, others were pioneering novel vaccine architectures in record time and saving record numbers of lives. Other vaccines have been available for decades and are completely effective, but misinformation has led swaths of America to render their children vulnerable to completely preventable diseases. Children are dying in Texas of measles right now. But the CDC is being dismantled. CDC employees with decades of experience running programs designed to keep Americans from dying of infectious disease are losing their jobs. So I ask you, do you think firing staffers at the CDC is going to keep Americans safe from COVID?
No!
Do you think firing staffers at the CDC is going to keep Americans safe from measles?
No!
How can we keep Americans safe from AIDS? Kill the cuts! How can we keep Americans safe from COVID? Kill the cuts! How can we keep Americans safe from measles? Kill the cuts! We must invest in what matters. Our democracy gives us a voice in what our government does. I know it's disheartening to see what's happening in our country right now. We work tirelessly to try and prevent this from happening, and yet it has. Looking at the current state of our governments at the federal level and in Georgia can make you feel like there's no hope. But we do have hope. We have 2 amazing Democratic senators. We have 5 Democratic representatives in the U.S. House. Georgia is purple and getting bluer by the day. We need to continue working in our community to make sure folks stay connected, stay hopeful, stay engaged, and keep voting. So let's make a pledge to stand up for science. Let's stay invested in research. Let's stay invested in making the world a better place. We know how to do it, so I will ask you one more time, how do we stand up for science? Kill the cuts! How do we stand up for research? Kill the cuts! How do we stand up for public health? Kill the cuts! Thank you very much.
Wow, that was a great speech, great talk by Jennifer Leavey. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is State Senator Josh McLaurin. Senator McLaurin is from District 14, a seat once held by President Jimmy Carter. And he represents Georgians in Roswell and Sandy Springs, but he's also working for all of us in Georgia. Please welcome Senator Josh McLaurin.
Thank you, Jill, for the microphone adjustment. I appreciate that. And good to see everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I wish it were a better afternoon or a better week or month or year than we've been having so far with this administration. But that's why we're here, right? My name's Josh McLaurin. I represent District 14, as Jill said. That includes parts of Sandy Springs, Roswell, Johns Creek, Atlanta, and Alpharetta in North Fulton County. And I've been in the state legislature now, this is my 7th year. And never have I seen, in the 7 years I've been there, even during the Trump era, an approach to government that is as reckless, as stupid, and as mean as the approach that the federal government is taking right now with its a range of policies, all the way from its so-called DOGE, you know, its anti-government program named after an internet dog, and the tariffs obviously are on everybody's minds right now, destroying decades of free trade and the gains that has produced for people here and everywhere. It is a very stupid time we're living in, so we've got to figure out what are we going to do to respond. Now, obviously, we're out here today. There was a rally over the weekend that was widespread across the country of hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people making their voices heard. But it seems dire, right? Nobody wants to hear from a politician, wait till the next election. Nobody wants to hear from a politician, if you could just rush me $5, then I can save you 2 years from now, maybe. And the Democratic Party has not had such a good track record of putting their money where their mouth is for workers. We've got to be able to admit that if we want progress. And I want to thank the United Campus Workers, Indivisible for hosting, and all the other organizations involved. The Democrats you see here today, and I see a couple of my friends who are elected in the audience here, want to do something new. We don't want to roll over, and we don't want to just wait for the next election. So what does that mean? Well, there's a fine line between performance and action, right? But it is really important for all of us to use our voices as resistance. And there are ways to use your voices as resistance that are not just performative. For example, when you say true things out loud that people wish you wouldn't say, and especially when you say it to their face. And that's something we try to do every day in the state House and the state Senate. But more importantly, it means going to places like the U.S. Treasury or the other federal buildings. It's important to show up. And when the cuts are happening, demand access, demand to be let in. If you've got subpoena power, issue subpoenas. If you don't have subpoena power, send letters. Make it hard. Call their offices. Make it impossible for folks to live as if everything is comfortable and hunky-dory. Put the pressure on socially, because the truth is, a lot of these Republican Congress people who say crazy stuff on TV to the news media, they don't believe that stuff. They know they're pandering to a base that just hates the government, hates their neighbor. And they want to see government destroyed because they'd rather kill everything that they've got than their neighbor have anything, right? So that's what these cuts are. 80,000 cuts to the VA, tens of thousands of cuts in the Department of Health and Human Services, to the NIH and the CDC. Well, if you're trying to eliminate the entire Freedom of Information division from the CDC, you're not trying to govern. You're trying to destroy government. And so it's important for us to take the fight. You may have remembered DC, in Washington, D.C., the inauguration events, when there was a church service as part of the ceremony and a bishop looked directly at the president and vice president's families and all the dignitaries and said, have mercy on the people who can't defend themselves. Have mercy on people who are the most vulnerable. Did you see how twisted up their faces got? Because in their minds, they were supposed to be able to have their ceremonial event with no disturbance, with no disruption. People were supposed to take all of this sitting down and like it and not say anything in return. So I understand performance as performance doesn't mean much. But if you can make the people in power uncomfortable, and events like this, the more that we do them, the more that we build the muscle to just show up in person and do that, the more that we can tell the new ruling class of weird internet corner obsessed far-right people who want to remake the country in their own image, the more we can say, we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're not down with what you're doing, and eventually there will be an election, eventually we will take you out of power. But until then, we've got to have energy, we've got to be vocal, and we've got to make known that this is batshit. It's completely insane. And there's no amount of pretending that this is normal that will get us the gains that we need. There's no incremental work to be done here or compromise. We must reject wholesale this absolute destruction of our government. So again, we're in the minority in the state Senate and the state House. We are doing what we can to try to speak out every day and make these folks uncomfortable, make it clear this is not going to be a new normal or status quo in our system. But we obviously need your help, and we have your back. When it comes time to govern, whenever that day is, we need universal basic income. We need universal health care. We need to support working people in real material ways. We used to have some pretty sweet marginal tax rates in this country. Back when we believed in community, we believed in each other. Okay, none of this 30-something% nonsense anymore. The billionaires, the oligarchs, are gonna have to pay their fair share. And so it's two things, just to sum up, that we are committed to doing for you. First is to be loud and to make those in power uncomfortable right now as they dismantle everything that makes this country great. And number two, when your advocates get a turn at the gavel, when we're finally back in a position to do something, let us leave our shy, incremental policies at the door. Let us think big about how to transform this system so that a new generation of Americans can prosper and lead to a different and hopefully more enlightened era. So thank you again for coming out to support. Thank you for having me and my colleagues here to speak to you. and we're happy to be in community with you as we fight this fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator McLaurin. That was wonderful. And so I have a question for you before we bring up our next speaker. How many of you have ever voted in a runoff election in Georgia? Well, I think almost everybody. We're voting a lot here in this state, and lots of runoff elections. Our next speaker, Ben Rowley, is from Better Ballot, Georgia. And he's going to tell us about ranked choice voting. I'm a huge fan of ranked choice voting. I learned about it about 25 years ago, and I don't know why it hasn't become our way of voting today, but maybe before I die. It'll solve a lot of problems. So please welcome Ben Rowley to tell us more about this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jill. My name is Ben Rowley, and I'm the statewide organizer for Better Ballot, Georgia, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that seeks to educate the public about ranked choice voting and what it could bring to our state if implemented. For those unfamiliar with the concept, ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to our election system, where instead of voting for just one candidate, you're able to rank the candidates the voter is able to rank the candidates from their most to least favorite. And if a voter's choice can't win and no candidate is at a majority of the votes, their vote will simply move to their second option or their backup vote. This solution, while it might seem technical and removed from the issues that we're here talking about today, I think it really gets at the heart of what most Americans know to be true about our political system and our electoral system, and that is that they are deeply flawed and not representative of the people. In the current system, candidates are often incentivized to run to whatever they need to say to satisfy their base, which often results in leaders that are not actually representative of the majority of even their own partisan voters, much less the will of voters more broadly. When the only check on a legislator is whether or not they are able to get the donor class and their narrow base to support them, they are not able to effectively represent their entire constituency. Ranked choice voting helps to change all of that. In an RCV system, candidates are incentivized to build coalitions with one another and represent their entire constituency, because the way to win in a ranked choice voting system is by getting an actual majority of voters, not the farce of a majority that is produced with runoff elections that see a drop off of up to 90% in voter turnout. You, as a candidate, want your opponent's voters to at least rank you second, so you have a shot at building that winning majority. In a ranked choice voting system, candidates need to have an affirmative vision for why they should be elected, not just a negative vision for why their opponents should not be.
Yes.
We hear every election cycle that this is the most important election of our lifetimes. And the reason that we hear that is because it's true. The stakes are continuing to get higher and higher because the elected officials that are being asked to make decisions that affect all of us are stuck catering to their real constituencies, the donor class and the political extremes that don't actually represent the will of the people. We cannot rely on elected officials to do just what is best for their communities on the basis that it is right. And I want to be clear, we have some great elected officials. It's not because they're inherently bad or immoral people, but rather because the system by which we select them does not actually reward good behavior. In fact, it does the opposite. Protesting and freedom of assembly are basic and deeply important methods of demonstrating discontent and, as Representative McLaurin said, make people uncomfortable. But if we don't address the system by which power is distributed and make it more representative of the will of the people, then we cannot expect those people that are elected by it to represent our interests. When a person is sick, we don't just treat the symptoms, although they are important to manage and respond to. We focus our effort on curing the root cause of the illness, and so it is with our democracy. If we don't deal with the underlying infection that is corrupting our system of checks and balances, then we are simply making our society's descent into autocracy slightly more palatable on the way down. Better Ballot Georgia believes that ranked choice voting exists at the perfect intersection of political possibility and of genuine change. Political possibility because it solves real problems like the runoff elections that cost our local government $75 million every election cycle in local taxpayer dollars. to ultimately not even get a result that represents the majority of voters, and genuine change in that it produces coalition building, issue-based campaigning, and ultimately improves the mechanism of holding those with power to account by making the ultimate winner be more representative of their needs. If you agree with us or are just curious to learn more, you can find us at betterballotgeorgia.org and on all social media platforms. You can also find me walking around with a physical petition that you can sign on and get more involved to talk about the promise of our city. Thank you all for being here. It is existentially important to our democracy that people care, and today you're doing that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. And Ben, you have petitions. Has everybody signed the petition? So make sure you sign that petition that Ben has that he's brought today. Our next speaker is Miles Scales from the ANGLC, which is the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council. The Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council represents 18 metro Atlanta counties, 60 affiliated unions with 70,000 members. It does a great job amplifying events that unions put on, have helped my union, United Campus Workers, a lot over the years, and I'm thrilled to have Miles come up and give us a talk about what he's going to talk to us today about from Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council.
Thank you guys for coming today. I'll try and keep it brief. The gutting of tens of thousands of federal government jobs is the direct response or the direct result of an administration that cares more about its corporate benefactors than any of us working class Americans. Cutting federal employees like our AFGE brothers and sisters means a massive loss in our ability to utilize the federal government and all the support that it gives to us citizens. We as a people have forgotten the importance and the difference that a well-regulated and funded government can actually make. Subsidized housing, universal health care, child care, educational funding, etc. All of these things require that the federal government actually be ran in a competent manner with people that deserve more than just a living wage, which they already don't exactly get. It's a travesty. Cutting healthcare workers and fields of public science means our understanding of what an actual healthy society looks like. We will have worse medical outcomes, horribly slow medical breakthroughs, and fuel a lot of anti-vax and anti-science conspiracy theories. Cutting education itself is an obvious problem. If we don't want to fail the society even more than it already has been by boosting, well, anti-intellectual bullcrap, everyone seems to be very easily swindled into believing that global tariff wars will somehow fix all of our economic woes. But that's because of a lack of education. Almost all of our current issues stem from a lack of education, which correlates directly into the cutting of the educational system. I'm as tired as everybody else from speeches stating the obvious, but I just want to leave you guys with this. We clearly lack a lot of imagination, and we shouldn't just think of our current situation. We should be thinking of the future and how we see ourselves in said future. It's very, very easy to resign ourselves into things like nihilism and no longer care, but the future is worth fighting for. All of you here are worth fighting for. So, thank you guys. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Miles. That was great. And our next speaker is State Representative Dr. Jasmine Clark. Dr. Clark is a microbiologist, and she organized the first March for Science in 2017. She gave a fiery speech 1 month ago right here in Liberty Plaza for our Stand Up for Science rally, and we're delighted to have her back today. Please welcome Representative Dr. Jasmine Clark.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today.
say, you know, it's really disheartening that we are having to go through this. And I'm actually a bit confused because not too long ago, there were people in this country that were complaining that eggs cost too much. And apparently, the eggs costed so much that they were willing to trade, I guess for the price of eggs, whatever this is that we have now sitting in Washington. But the problem is, we got what we have in Washington, and the egg prices actually went up.
Right?
And so I was confident that those same people would now be up in arms because their eggs are still $4. But then I learned, I looked around, I watched, I listened, and I learned that those same people that could not fathom spending $4 on eggs are actually celebrating their neighbors and their community members losing their jobs. They are actually willing to spend $10 on eggs if it means that people that they feel don't deserve are miserable and suffering. And that is where we are right now in this country, and that is something that we will definitely have to reconcile with in our country. So if the suffering is the point, then how do we get back to a place where we actually care about our neighbor and where we actually are fighting for the good? You all are out here because you're fighting for the good. When we cut funds to research and public health, we are basically saying we are okay with the spread of communicable diseases. We are okay with children dying from things that they don't have to die from. We are okay with globally seeing a rise in certain diseases that we were getting a handle on. That's what these cuts mean. And for what? Because you feel like DEI got in the way? Because you feel that all people who do this work are somehow not actually doing any work at all, and so we just need to cut their jobs so we can give tax cuts to billionaires? None of this actually makes sense to me. And so I've been really sitting with this and trying to figure out what can we do? And I realized I sit in kind of a unique position. I both work in the research field. I teach at a university. I have the honor and privilege of meeting a lot of young people who are interested in going to graduate school and doing research and things like that. And I know that if given the opportunity, they are going to innovate and they are going to advance where we are as a society. Those cuts, chop them off at the knee and do not allow them to do that. Those cuts rob us of our future.
Right.
But I also sit in a position where I am an elected official. And so I have a lot of conversations with other elected officials. And I can tell you a secret right now, loud and proud. Most elected officials' biggest fear is not getting reelected. And so I know the next election is not until 2026. And today is not a speech or a call to vote. Today, I'm asking you to reach out to those people who are going to be asking for your vote in 2026 and tell them, I want you to actually fight. I want you to kill these cuts, and I want you to fight for our community, for our health, and for our future. And similar to what my colleague said, Make them uncomfortable. A lot of times when I hear people talk, they'll say, when I call, does that even matter? I've been calling and nothing is changing. Do they even care? Do they even see those calls? And the answer is yes, they do. And if they get enough of them, they start second guessing some of the things they're doing. For example, these tariffs, they're hitting people's pockets, they're hitting people's retirements pretty hard. Now all of a sudden, you got a few Republicans in the room, sitting in the room with the Democrats saying, hey, maybe we should do something, because I live in a district where if I don't do something, or at least act like I'm trying to do something, I'm probably not gonna get reelected. So they are listening to you, even when it doesn't feel like they are listening to you. So please, call your elected officials and let them know what you want, and let them know when they're doing a bad job, but also when they're doing a good job. They need to hear from you. They need to be afraid that when it's time for you to vote, and it's time for us to rally for the next election, they need to think in the back of their mind, have I done enough? Have I replied? Have I taken any action to try to stop this bleeding that is happening in our country right now? So that is my ask of you. That is my call to action to you. Yes, we want them to kill the cuts, and they need to hear that from us every single day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Representative Clark. That was wonderful, and a wonderful reminder of our campaign, our call to action for today. Go to bit.ly/April 8 letter, okay? Or you can scan this QR code. We've got one over there by our table, and that will allow you to do exactly what Representative Clark just asked, which is to reach out to our senators and ask them to kill the cuts. So please be a part of our email zap today and send that out. It won't take too long. So how many of you heard about the hands-off protests that took place on Saturday? I think just about everybody, and probably a lot of you attended. Well, Hands Off Atlanta was a huge success, in large part due to our next speaker, Martha Shockey of Indivisible, Georgia. Martha told me they were expecting about 8,000 people in Atlanta on Saturday. 30,000 showed up. It was an amazing turnout. And so please welcome the wonderful Martha Shockey.
Thank you for having me here today. I'll add also that we had probably another 10 to 12,000 people around the state in other small towns and in rural areas standing out with signs. So we were about 40,000 strong on Saturday, which is, more than we could have dreamed of when we started this about 12 days ago. We were really happy to get a little bit of a break. But I'm also glad to be here as a former union member. My first job, I was a member of the Teamster Union, and then I moved to Atlanta and joined AFSCME when I worked at Grady Hospital back here. So I know the value of being a union member, and talk to people all the time about how important it is to form a union and join a union. That is some of the best feeling in the world, to be in solidarity with other people and to feel that power that you have when you organize together and when you win, because you do win when you organize together. Our task in Indivisible is to hold our elected officials accountable. Much like Dr. Clark said, you have to call people, you have to show up. So we have several tactics that we use in our overall strategy. Recently, you may have heard about a town hall in Roswell, Georgia, where Representative, was it McClintock? McCormick, thank you, had a town hall, and he heard a lot from his constituents. And it was people across the board. It wasn't just progressive people or Democrats. It was everybody came to that to talk about the kind of pain that they're feeling because of these cuts. So I also know, though, that these cuts are trying to be implemented here in Georgia. And the session that we just saw end here in Georgia, right across the street here, there are many, many bills that were put on the table, but some of the bad ones were really stopped, and they were stopped because people showed up. People made the phone calls. People sent the emails, and that is really what our call is. We have some flyers over here with our email address. You're welcome to send us a note if you want to receive our notices throughout the year. We'll be doing that work in the state and, of course, nationally. In addition to the issue with the cuts, this week we expect to hear on the House floor a vote on the SAVE Act. And that is a bill that would require people to have a birth certificate, one, to prove that they're a citizen, and also if you had a name change, so if you got married and changed your name, then you'd have to prove that you were that person before the name change. It really places a high barrier. If you don't know anything about ID laws and about how to get an ID, let me tell you, it's not easy. We are very lucky to have an organization in Georgia called Vote Writers who work with people to gain those IDs. And so that's another really fine organization to organize with and to join. This week, please call your congresspeople, your senators, let them know that you're opposed to this and that you want them to do everything in their power to stop this bill. And it is being heard in the House, but it's okay to go ahead and call your senator and just let them know that this is coming and that you want them to stop it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming together to talk about these cuts and the deep problems and pain that people are having in the wake of this. I think our march on Saturday and our rally showed just how many people understand how deeply this is affecting our communities and individuals. So once again, thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing to be involved.
Thank you, Martha. That was great. Nonviolent protests, like the one we just had over the weekend on Saturday, they are twice as likely to succeed as armed conflicts. And those engaging a threshold of 3.5% of the population have never failed to bring about change. Hands Off on Saturday had 3 million people who participated out of 340 million in the US. To reach that 3.5% threshold, we're going to need about 4 times as many people. But I'm sure you know a lot of people who didn't go to that protest. So what we have to do is encourage our friends and our family to get involved. Here in Georgia, we have weekly protests. We have weekly rallies for CDC workers on Tuesdays from 4 to 6. And those are on the Clifton Road campus. So you can go there every Tuesday. Just go pop in, bring a sign, get honks from all the drivers, and show your support for CDC workers. There's also weekly Tesla takedowns. Those are on Saturday afternoons. I know of at least 3 of those in the Atlanta area. You just Google Tesla takedown and you can find out where those are. Bring a sign, go for an hour, and we'll eventually bring a friend, and we'll get to that 3.5% threshold. So our next speaker is Representative Ruwa Romman. And I'm so happy that she reached out to me to come and speak today. It made my day, honestly. Representative Romman represents House District 97, which is in Gwinnett County, and it's in Duluth, Georgia, and Berkeley Lake. But again, she is fighting for all of us here in Georgia. So please welcome Representative Romman.
do more mic adjustments, apparently. So yes, my name is Romman. I represent House District 97, which is in West Gwinnett. So it's Berkeley Lake, parts of Duluth, parts of Norcross, and parts of Peachtree Corners. And the reason you keep hearing us add more cities is thanks to a process called gerrymandering, where they keep, breaking up all of our cities into random little districts that don't really make sense. However, I am so excited you mentioned the 3.5% thing, because that's what I wanted to talk about today. I think a lot of times people think that the only way to create change is if you get like 100% of the population on board. That's not the case at all. And if y'all remember, right around the time that Trump got inaugurated, a lot of people, unfortunately, in Congress kept thinking, well, let's work together, let's find compromises, let's do this. And in response, there was actually a letter that went out to Republican senators that was like, let's work together on immigration. And they literally laughed in their faces. And to me personally, that was I thought would be a good enough indicator of, hey, this is not business as usual. The sad reality, though, about these halls that we're in is the inertia is so strong that it requires a lot to change people's perspectives and force them to do things differently. And what do I mean by that? Think about your daily job. What time you wake up in the morning, the routine, the route you take, you get into the office, what do you normally do at the very beginning, your weekly office staff meetings. That same inertia, unfortunately, and sometimes fortunately, exists in legislative bodies. And it took, I would argue, too much time, but it did take some time to get our members of Congress on board with quote-unquote fighting back. And you know why they did that? It's because y'all reached out and said, I'm expecting you to do more. As awful as it is, government requires us to babysit it every once in a while, and that's sort of like a group project of babysitting our governments that are representative. The reality is, just like we have inertias in our jobs, unfortunately the same happens in these halls of power. And when we reached out to a lot of you and said, hey, we need your help, we need you to reach out to these House members in Congress, we need you to reach out to our senators, so many of you showed up and showed out. When we asked, hey, we want to do a rally and press conference, so my member of Congress is Hank Johnson, and within a week he said, hey, I need people to come down to the Social Security office and rally with me, and he had a group that came and rallied with them. And when more and more people did that, our members got more and more brave. They realized, you know what? Wait a minute. No, our base wants us to fight back. Our base wants us to stand up and say, we don't want business as usual anymore. We don't want to keep just, if we behave long enough, we'll actually might get a little something out of it. Those days, for me personally, I believe are over. And after the legislative session that we've had, it was truly because of you all that we were able to convince a lot of our leadership and our colleagues to take more risks. So I don't know if y'all heard, but there was a particularly bad bill related to how we wanted to redo prosecutorial oversight, which was technically a good bill. It was a phenomenal bill, but naturally politics has its way. And one attempt we try to do, even though we're in the minority, is that members in that committee that were in charge of passing that bill, the Democratic members, walked out and broke quorum. And they did it over and over and over again until Republicans were forced, to bring even more members to that committee and threaten to bring more members to that committee to pass the bill. Now, obviously we can't always do that, but any opportunity that we have found to do that and kind of make things frankly awkward, we've been able to do because so many of you said, I expect you to do that. The expectation from the public changed. And again, it didn't take 100% of our voters and 100% of people to do that. It was a small and active and consistent group of people that was able to change the mindset that I've seen around me. Another instance of this, I don't know if y'all have heard, but unfortunately Republicans have become obsessed with trans people, and they have become the newest punching bag for them to be able to make political, constantly be able to hit on political points and be able to send out mailers. And we got to a point where we got to our third, I think it was anti-trans bill, and our caucus, who normally looks at me when I say, hey, let's do a thing, kind of is like, okay, we'll figure that out. They actually said yes to all of us walking out because we wanted to send a very clear message that, and I want to be clear, we all, there's 80 members of us, 75 of us walked out. It was incredible, but the message was clear. We hadn't done a single bill on the minimum wage. We'd only done one bill on housing. I could count on one hand the number of bills for education. I mean, we hadn't even had the budget done at that point, right? The budget came at the very last minute. It's our only constitutionally required mandate as state representatives and senators. And yet, what did they want to spend another hour and a half on Wednesday or whatever day it was? They wanted to keep punching down and bullying people. And while the rest of us suffer under the consequences of Trump's policies, of the consequences of these cuts, of the consequences of this uncertainty and chaos, and we literally said, you know what? You bring another trans bill, we're walking out again. We will no longer dignify conversations about the humanity of people.
Right.
And hey, we sine-died on Friday and we didn't see another bill, right? Sometimes that's what it takes. But here's what else it's going to take, talking about the 3.5%, and I'm so glad you talked about this. We are all here today, and I love that we are all here today. But in the future, I would love to see us start bringing 4 people with you, 5 people with you. That every time we have any of these gatherings, we are bringing more and more people with us. Because the reality is that our neighbors might not know how to be more politically involved. Our neighbors might feel really powerless and hopeless right now, especially as we keep stacking the deck against them in favor, frankly, of corporations like we did this year with tort reform. And it's going to take all of us, every single one of us, to start paying attention to all of the 1,000 different cuts that have happened over the past decades, right? In order to make it harder for average, everyday people to fight back. Because at the end of the day, we need each other. Whether, think about the person who annoys you the most, but you do agree with, right? Y'all are going to need each other. This is the moment where we kind of have to sort of grit our teeth and say, hey, this is bigger than you, this is bigger than me, and it is going to take every single one of us to make change. So I cannot thank you personally enough for enabling all of us to have the kind of courage that we did this year, for our members of Congress to have the kind of courage that they've had. Personally, they're not where I would love for them to be, but they're getting there, and why it's so important for you to keep showing up. Because here's the last bit I'll say. I know it's exhausting, but this is a marathon, and we do have to do this long term, because I promise you, when we stop showing up, that's when we're going to see the most regression across the board. So tap people in, take breaks, but make sure there's 3 people replacing you for that next event, next rally, whatever the case may be. You don't have to do everything on your own, and we can absolutely do it together, because the reality is when you talk to a neighbor, you're breaking their information bubble, 1. 2, you're helping them do something that will give them more hope and feel like they can do something. And 3, you build the kind of momentum we need to be that 3.5%. So thank y'all so much for being here. Super appreciate, just all the work that you've been doing, and please reach out to us, especially now that we're done with session.
Okay, thank you, Representative Romman. Our final speaker for this afternoon is John Harris. John Harris is an organizer extraordinaire. In fact, today he already pulled off a speak out on the Georgia Tech campus. He's on the United Campus Workers Southeast Executive Board, United Campus Workers of Georgia Steering Committee. Please welcome John Harris.
Hey, all of y'all. I have a kind of strange question for you that may seem a little out of context, but how many of you have been inside your neighbor's house? That's amazing. How many of you think you could call on your neighbors to come out to an event like this? A few less hands. Politics is a contest of power, and we have power as individuals, but only so little. And every single one of us is connected to a community that can be tapped, that can be mobilized, and that can make strong, powerful change happen. I am a graduate research assistant at Georgia Tech. I study batteries. I was kind of called to do this work because I was thinking about how I could use my education to try to better the world. And the reality is climate change and the way that we power our world threatens us in a life or death situation. And not just in some distant future. We have proven that the way that we power our world results in 5 million deaths simply from the air pollution alone, not counting disasters. There is no power in the United States that can stop climate change. This is a global issue. The students who have spoken out in the United States in support of Palestine and are facing
the pushback of the federal government, threats of deportation, are speaking out in support of humanity. This is a global issue.
Yes.
The power that we need to wield is solidarity. And I think that it's interesting that we talk about being in the halls of power or being in power. The truth is we wield power. Some of us wield only so little, but collectively we wield a great amount. And wielding power is wielding the pen that writes the rules and the story that we tell. And so all of us here acknowledge that these people hold that power. That's the truth. They hold that power, and they are wielding it to dismantle our government, to make America less safe, less healthy, to make our future more uncertain. But it is our responsibility to recognize that we hold power and that we together can wield that power and contest in this fight their ability to do that. As a labor organizer, I recognize that working people have the power to change the world, and every single one of us is one of those working people. You know people who work in these jobs that are being affected. You maybe are related to them. Maybe they live on your street. I have learned so much about the Centers for Disease Control and how they're being dismantled and how that makes us less safe and less healthy. And so as part of this National Day of Action, I tried my best to make sure that we were not just reaching out to campus workers in the University System of Georgia, the constituency that I represent as an elected member of my union, but that we were reaching across to these CDC workers, that we were reaching out to Emory Unite, other labor unions that were fighting the same fight as us. Because again, there are tens of thousands of workers in the University System of Georgia, but that's not enough. We talked about 30,000 people marching in Atlanta, but that's not enough. And it's not enough just to march. We have to think about how we're wielding that power and what we're doing. So I challenge you today, join an organization. Because if you are calling your Congress people, that's fine. But if you are mobilizing 10 other people to call that same number, that's even stronger. Be a part of an organization that is fighting for something, not just against something. We had so many people here talk today about the great world that we can build together, a world that I believe in, where we can stop climate change, where we can have universal health care, where we actually feel safe in our communities, where we trust one another. I believe that is possible, and I hope you do too, because it's a dark time right now, but you have power, and we can put that power into action if we trust each other, we join in our organizations, we cross those lines, and actually do the work of getting to whatever. If it's 12 million people in the street, that's great. If it's 3 million people shutting shit down for a day, maybe that's what it takes. But I guarantee you it's going to be a lot more than that. It's going to be us showing up consistently and trying to build the world that we want to see one day at a time, every day. And that's really all I have to say. And we can take some of that energy and we can wave at some of these cars, y'all. We're going to get this word out because we got to catch some of these people on rush hour maybe a little bit. And I think that is the wrap that we have on this little rally, but we're going to take some signs and we're going to stand out, wave at some of these folks. But thank you all for being here. Thank you to the representatives. Thank you to everyone else who took the time. Yeah, we got a long fight ahead of us, but each of us has power to make that change, y'all. Let's make it happen.
Thank you, John. Thanks for wrapping up. And we have a lot of signs that are pre-made. We also have a sign-making table with lots of supplies to make signs. So let's just, it doesn't have to, we don't have to be there forever. This event's been going on for a little bit, but let's maybe even just 10 minutes. We stand out on the sidewalk with our signs, get some honks. Okay, so please join me, and I have signs if you didn't bring one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jill.